The views, information, or opinions expressed in this episode are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience, our funders, or any of the organizations affiliated with this project. Welcome to a Seeds of Wellbeing Experts in the Field podcast featuring Hawaii agriculture producers and affiliates working in their field of expertise to support agriculture in Hawaii, in the United States, and in some cases around the world. These podcasts are made possible by a grant from the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience, also known as CTAHR, and the Seeds of Wellbeing or SOW project, and is supported by a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the Hawaii Department of Agriculture.
I think it was 1994 when we became the Natural Resources Conservation Service due to some of the ever-changing roles of what we get engaged and involved with as an agency. And so we've been known as the Natural Resources Conservation Service ever since 1994.
We are the federal agency providing conservation technical assistance. We also administer the financial aid through the Farm Bill. We have offices in every county for Hawaii. I am the Outreach Coordinator. We have an office of a workforce of maybe 80 or so employees that serve the Pacific Islands area. I'm physically in Honolulu at the main office.
I reached out to NRCS right away, knowing they were a resource, and I've been a farmer back in Missouri, so I already was set up with an account with them or whatever. Anyhow, they came out and looked over everything and gave me some advice on, first I was looking at water control, because being in a heavy rainfall area and there was lots of erosion here from cattle and pigs. So that was our first step, but we ended up talking about what options we had, and one of them was that we did want to put in some high tunnels to grow stuff in because of the high rainfall.
So when we were ready, after the perimeter fence went up, we brought some cows in. And that was probably the beginning of our journey with NRCS. So we've actually received...
I may interrupt. Did NRCS help fund the perimeter fence?
No.
Okay.
At that time, my understanding was that you needed to put your perimeter fence in and have it installed with your animals already there.
Okay.
If you spend enough time around Hawaii farmers and ranchers, you'll soon hear the name of the federal agency Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS. You may hear the word conservation and not necessarily think that they help ag producers, but if you've spoken with them or folks that have worked with them, you'll wonder why you haven't reached out to them sooner. To better understand NRCS and what they can do to help, we speak with the Director for all the Pacific Islands, J.B. Martin, an NRCS Outreach Coordinator, Jolene Lau, as well as two Hawaii agriculture producers that have been working with NRCS recently.
How would you describe the core mission of NRCS?
The core mission of NRCS is to protect our natural resources related to soil, water, plants, and our air quality across the nation. And soil conservation is our key. We want to improve our whole ecosystem from an environment standpoint to make it sustainable for years to come.
If you could maybe share some examples for Hawaii ag producers as the types of programs that are available to them or that make sense within the NRCS umbrella.
Our primary program that we utilize in the state of Hawaii is our Environmental Quality Incentives Program, better known as EQIP. That's our main go-to. In the last few years, with the funds that we had through our former Inflation Reduction Act funds, and so EQIP, it addresses a lot of best management practices that we utilize here in the state, from piggeries, hoop houses, fencing, wildlife management, irrigation, the whole 9 yards. And however, the most lucrative thing about the program itself is we provide anywhere from 75% to 90% cost share payment for those individuals. And we also have an opportunity to provide advanced payment to help those in need to get the ball rolling because of the dynamics of getting goods and materials on the island. And so we want to continue that track.
Under EQIP, we have Conservation Stewardship Program. So that's a funding opportunity that helps our ag producers take their conservation efforts to the next level. So it might be enhancement conservation practices, something that is in addition to their currently used EQIP practices. Special to Hawaii, we have the Agricultural Management Assistance Program. So AMA is available in only certain states. Not every state has this funding opportunity, but this one helps our ag producers manage financial risk through diversification, marketing, and natural resource conservation practices. So again, that was AMA.
So are there certain requirements to be eligible for that funding?
The best person that will help our customers navigate the application process and which program funding is typically the field office.
As is often the case, the answer is it depends, I suppose, right? I think that might apply too to, like, I watched some of the videos that are on your website, and I noticed there's a note on most of the videos that says this applies to this farmer in this area, but may not apply to your situation. So I think that's maybe the case, but I think what I'm hearing is that it's important to reach out to your local field office. Is that correct?
Yes, each island has a field office, and Hawaii Island has 3 offices. So Hilo, Waimea, and Kona.
Give me a sense, Keith, or let folks know kind of what inspired you to connect with NRCS and what your project is.
All right. So we decided when we bought the property 6-7 years ago that we wanted to grow food. And anyhow, so we did, we submitted and got approved for one high tunnel, and we were working on water storage also, which is now our focus right now. We are in a drought, and everything here is suffering. So,
And NRCS offered to fund both projects?
they did. We were going to put in a high tunnel and then water catchment off the high tunnel. I originally wanted to talk to them about putting in ponds, and they kind of said, well, we like to fund catchment tanks rather than ponds, and so we've got to go back for more discussions on that. But everybody's been really helpful at NRCS, and you know, I know they have their procedures and stuff, and that's what we're you know, in different funding cycles. So hopefully one of these next cycles we can get in something for ponds.
So we've been on this property since 2017 and began fencing. We had animals, cows in here to help clear, and then we took the chainsaws and cut down on the big brush. Once we got the animals in, we wanted to create paddocks, but we didn't really know where to start. So we've actually received 2 grants. The initial grant was, NRCS grant, was to create 4 paddocks so we could rotate the animals. And that was in 2021. So that grant funded the cross fencing to create 4 paddocks, and also provided funds for the little water tank that you see up there, the black one. That was funded by NRCS. It's 2,500 gallons. And along with that, we were required to build that catchment shed. And the grant also funded the transmission line and 4 troughs within within each of the paddocks. In addition to that, we had to take grazing or conduct grazing records for 1 year. So our animals were in, they prescribed the number of animals we could have, and then we worked with their planners and put together a plan where we would supplement the forages within the paddocks. So we planted grasses that were more nutritious than the dominant halo grass. So after 4 years or 3 years, we completed that project. And we are in the current cycle with our new grant to provide support for our crops. And that grant is actually funding the water catchment tank.
The big one.
The big one. There, yeah. It's actually a 10,000 gallon tank, which is an upgrade from what they did prescribe initially, which was 5,000 gallons. So let me backtrack a little bit. So the components of the second grant, which we are in currently, will support our market garden. And it includes this high tunnel greenhouse, which is actually 24 feet by 48 feet. It also includes the water system, which will include the water tank, a transmission line, and then drip irrigation within the high tunnel greenhouse.
You know, we have our challenges, we have our battles in terms of not only logistics, but red tape. That's been a thorn in our side with a lot of our programs because it's not as simplified as users would like to see. But we work to our unique geographical makeup here in the islands. And so I know it's imperative that we can't be waiting such a long amount of time to make things happen. I relay that message on a consistent basis. So we got to do a better job of that, and hopefully we can streamline some programs to help us improve that.
If anyone is interested in making improvements, I encourage them to seek out their nearest office. It's really easy, farmers.gov. They enter the county, city and county that they live in, and then the search engine will provide the nearest address, phone number, email address even for the NRCS contact nearest them. That employee will then have a conversation, get a feel of, how many acres is the property, what are some of the resource concerns they're seeing, and we'll listen to what their conservation goals are. Together, we come up with a conservation plan. So if, the resource concern is, say, invasive species attacking the crops, the NRCS field office comes up with the suggested ways to address that.
Tell us a little bit about the process.
Sure. Yeah. I went into first off, they came out and there was I think 5 people came out to look at different things because I said I want to talk about everything. What's our possibilities here? What are we going to do with this? This was former sugarcane land, and it was in sugarcane for over 100 years, and then cattle, and there was a lot of erosion. There were some 5-foot deep erosion ditches from the cattle walking the fences and things that we wanted to get repaired right away so we didn't lose more topsoil and kill more of our coral offshore here. So they came out. It was really very simple. We afterwards I went in the office and filled out some paperwork, which as I say, I was already in the NRCS database as a farmer or whatever, so kind of I was established. But But that very simple, filling out paperwork, and they were right there to help. So
when we initially purchased the property, we were self-funding the development of this property, and it was actually pretty much tall grasses, 10 feet high, and then also we had a lot of albizia and other exotic species. So our plan was to clear, and we did all that clearing with animals and with hand tools. So then,
And your own money.
And our own money. And so we were aware that the U.S. Department of Agriculture had funds to help farmers, ranchers. And so I started to look into that and called the USDA and was directed to NRCS. And so we called them out, actually, and we had planners come out here. We were at the perimeter, and it wasn't completely cleared yet. And we had animals in here and said yes. They responded very favorably, saying that they could certainly help with some cross fencing and pasture management.
Nice. What does the process look like internally for you folks? You get all the applications in and you evaluate them based on a certain number of criteria and decide which ones you may, which folks you may work with and which you won't, or give me a sense of how that works.
You described it almost to the left, to the T, but the only difference is we go through a ranking process, and those applications that meet that threshold within that ranking process, those are the ones that will be funded, and the ones that fall below that will be deferred. Now, due to the case that we're referencing deferred, that deferment can be within that year or the following application year, due to if those who got approved do not move forward, then we move the next folks below that threshold up in certain cases.
Okay, so a threshold, that can be kind of a waiting list, it sounds like.
Correct.
And what criteria do you look at that might cause something to be deferred or not deferred? That you maybe a little tip for me if I'm writing my application.
We center our applications and a lot of our conservation planning around resource concerns. And so those resource concerns based on the elements of water quality, soil quality, erosion, wildlife, the whole different gamut. Most of the programs are centered around that. So it's dependent on how many of those that individuals are interested in addressing in terms of the impact of the particular practices that they want to utilize in addressing those resource concerns. Historically, plus or minus, a lot of people, ever since I became aware of this agency, some folks will come in and want to do just one practice. Sometimes that doesn't get you over the top of the mountain, because what are you actually addressing, and to meet the whole scope. And so we try to encourage folks not to twist their arm or, say, well, if you don't do this, we'll fund it. But we just try to encourage them to have the best opportunity for that. We try to guide them in the right direction. It's all voluntary. So if they don't get funded, people are going to chomp at the bit, why they didn't get funded. And sometimes we have to thoroughly explain, and some people get it, some people don't. But we try to do the best job we can to try to relay that message.
Yeah, and as I understand it, you have some quite skilled people that come out to the property and will do a fairly thorough assessment and make recommendations. So
right.
It sounds like the person writing the application has a good sense of what is recommended, and so
they do, and we're I give kudos to our staff. We're a very young staff, but I tell them all the time that based on my career, I put them up against any staff in the nation. Our goal is we just want to continue to enhance and improve our training opportunities to get them to the level where we have that expertise that is needed. Not only needed throughout the state of Hawaii, but PIA as a whole.
And there's quite a number of videos. If anyone is interested in watching, a short clip, maybe a minute and a half, about, gosh, there must be over 200 different conservation practices. And Maui, our office there, was filmed, so they are featured on YouTube. It's part of the Conservation at Work series. So the 3 practices available for your viewing pleasure, straight from our office on Maui. One is forest farming, one is herbaceous weed barriers, and the other is vegetative barrier. So that one, to help address erosion. But there's so many different practices available. They can watch the short YouTube videos online.
Yeah, and those are some of the videos I watched on the Pacific
Yeah.
page, for you
Yes.
folks in particular, those were highlighted. And email is an easy way to reach out for the folks based on what they find when they are steered towards a certain office.
Absolutely. And for folks that, prefer to visit in person and see face to face, the office address is also available when they do the search on farmers.gov.
Again, I looked at the annual report for last year. It looked like almost $30 million spent for to assist over 5,300 farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners. Looked like about 14 million of that was on the Big Island. So, and then was what 3.67 on Maui, 2.4 on Oahu, 1.2 on Kauai, and 660,000 on Molokai. So by island, does the process vary by island, or it really is just regional, right? And it's depends on the request that's made, or are there different regulations or stipulations island by island, or no, pretty much up to the local folks to decide?
So each island has a field office, and this month was an opportunity for our field to conduct local work group meetings. So they invited and heard from a lot of their landowners, the ag producers in the county. That direct feedback, all of that engagement and healthy dialogue about priority, natural resource concerns, went into a report, and that does impact our ranking for applications. So yes, we collect applications all year round for Environmental Quality Incentives Program. They're scored based on the resource concern that the application is trying to address, and the input that we received from the local work group, it does affect, how applications are ranked. So if you have not had an opportunity to talk with your local district conservationist, we always welcome that input.
Basically, I build it, I buy the kit, I build it. It has to be a kit because they want something that's, although it's not engineered, and I am an engineer, I have to buy a pre-made kit from one of the manufacturers. There's not very many either, and we buy the kit, put it up, they come inspect it, and then I think we have inspections for 5 years to make sure we're using it as we agreed to.
Every 5 years, or every year for 5 years?
Well, it's up sort of, I think, as they see fit.
Discretion.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when so you pay everything up front, you do the work up front, they inspect it, and then you get paid?
Yes, correct.
And it's a percentage of the total?
They have a set amount per square foot of high tunnel. So based on that, I've got friends that have put up some, and they said, well, it's about 50% of the cost.
Okay.
If you include the labor of installing, you've got to do some setting post in concrete and all the erections. So which I would do most everything myself. So
with friends, I hope.
Yes, yeah, and neighbors.
And neighbors. Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's how we get it done here.
Yeah, yeah.
And the water, the catchment as well, they will fund in a similar way?
Yeah, so we didn't, we had applied for funding for catchment, and they have I guess a pool of applicants, and we apparently didn't score high enough to get in this latest round of funding, but we're reapplying so that we're back in the pool, and they'll probably fund something in the future, hopefully.
We've been in touch with them since 2020, actually. 2020, and then 2021 is when we started the pasture project.
And so pretty much check in every year with them,
Yes.
It sounds like.
Actually, multiple times a year. So the staff there that we've worked with are actually really incredible resources. And so we've had planners who've come out and helped us with, improving the forage in our pasture so that the animals had better nutrition. We've planted grasses that include Baringoto, Marandu, California grass. And so we've been working with them each at the end of each practice. For example, we did the fencing first, the cross fencing first, and they came out to, well, first of all, they have very specific plans that you need to follow. They prescribe a certain type of wire fencing, posts, etc. So you've got to follow their prescriptions. And then once that is completed, then they come out and actually inspect, and then they certify that particular practice. So,
and that's the case for this greenhouse as well as the water tank, yes?
Precisely. So we have to follow the plans that well, first of all, we sit down with them to go over what our goals are. And then, for example, this greenhouse is designed for tomatoes and peppers. That will be our primary crop in here. And so we're working with them specifically to design the bed spacing, so that the irrigation lines can then be work into what our goals are.
So it sounds like you've gotten some inspiration and some good information from NRCS as part of the process, but also some very strict requirements for how you have to do it.
Correct.
Does that feel limiting at all to have those restrictions?
No, in fact, being new at this, our agricultural endeavor, it's been very, very helpful. We were working with the engineer, so there's the resource people include the planners, the animal experts, the engineer. So currently, in terms of the specific design of this area, within the greenhouse, we're working with the engineer. The water tank too. The engineer Chelsea, the engineer, has made some really good suggestions for us, and so we don't feel restricted. In fact, we really consider them to be the staff to be a resource. And even with the water tank, there's certain specifications that you need to follow. For example, two of the requirements for the steel tank would be to have a black liner instead of a white liner, to also paint the pipe. So we have an inspection coming up next week, and they will take a look at what we have done, and if we've checked off all the boxes, then they will certify it. So this is a reimbursement program. So certification means we will be reimbursed the costs.
Do you have an estimate as to what NRCS will pay for as part of that as a percentage?
NRCS will pay what is the full market price according to our contract, but the labor to install is our responsibility. So I believe that it's pretty much close to 100% of the material cost. But for example, the water tank, it included the cost of the tank, but not necessarily the gravel to install it and the labor to install it.
And did I hear you say earlier that the tank is larger than they would reimburse for, and so
Yes.
you're paying the extra? Is that how that
Correct.
works? Okay.
So in working with NRCS, we have a plan to have crops within this 2-acre area. So they understand that our bigger picture, and we're not necessarily wanting to irrigate only the greenhouse. And so we requested, not a change so much in our contract with them, but just to upgrade the size of the tank from 5,000 for the greenhouse to 10,000 gallons so that we could be secure in watering the entire parcel, the entire market garden. So we paid for the upgrade.
And are they pretty easy to work with, like flexible with things like that and paperwork?
Extremely, actually. What we found is that they're probably the easiest group to work with in terms of putting together a grant. I think there's an initial meeting with them, and your information is like, I did not fill out the one form. In fact, they did all that paperwork. They provided a plan of the whole property for us. They did research on our soil type, our elevations, etc.
Wow. So it sounds like maybe for beginning farmers, it's maybe even more valuable than established farms.
It really is. The key to getting an NRCS grant, though, is being ready. I think if we had called them in at the very beginning with really nothing here except what was here, then the value would have been their expertise, their recommendations, their assessment. But we would probably not have been funded at that point. But once we got to a certain level and we had our operation going with the animals in, then they were able to help us. I think they require that you put in your sweat equity and get started, and then they come in to help. Same with this second grant. Right here on this little plot, we had it was cover cropped when they came in. We had some sorghum Sudan here, and with the intention of turning it into a garden plot. So that qualified for the greenhouse to be here. The water system, of course, goes along with that, but they recognized very quickly that we needed more than 2,500 gallons of water. In fact, you can see the hose there on the fence. Mm-hmm. It's been watering this area is like being a fireman. I've had to drag hoses around, spend a lot of time just going from bed to bed, watering during when we plant initially, and then during dry areas. So in many cases, it's often it's daily. So this is going to save us a lot of time. Yeah. It's going to make our farm operations more efficient, and our production will be higher.
Yeah, especially with the drought.
Correct.
Right, if that continues. It's been a tough year for NRCS. Early in the year, they lost over 20% of their Pacific Island area staff because of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, reductions. There were more delays in the passage of the Farm Bill, which funds their programs, and October 1 to November 12th saw staff furloughed during the government shutdown. Let's hear what all this means for NRCS and its funding.
There's an article I ran into that was talking to, in the spring of this year, I believe there was when Department of Governmental Efficiency, I think, was offering early retirement or to a lot of folks in the program, that this article states that there were issues for NRCS specifically in many locations. I wondered, had you seen that impact the programs and your ability to do what you want to do in the Pacific Islands?
Yes and no. When that all originated, dating back to, don't quote me on the actual date, but it was around February 10th, 12th, somewhere along those lines when we first started receiving letters of losing, some of our employees and fork in the road, and then the DRP too. We lost a little over 20% of our staff as a result of that. And we're still reeling from that to a certain extent. But one thing I would say, and my leadership team, staff, and I, we've been continuously talking about this. We're very fortunate, to be quite frank and honest, because we at least still have employees in every office across the Pacific Islands, unlike some of my counterparts on the mainland, where we have some states that are hovering around 15, 16 plus offices that doesn't have anybody in them that once did prior to this taking place. And so we're in the process of trying to continue to evaluate, assess how we're going to continue to move forward to provide that staff support to those offices that were significantly impacted, like our Calico field office on Big Island. That's one of the main ones. Of course, one of the other main engines of our operations, including Hilo, but all of them are important, and we want to make sure that we continue to support them in any way that we can as it relates to that, but also including our partners. We want to make sure that we continue to develop our rapport with them and keep them on the same battlefield with us to assist our producers throughout.
And so now you just are back after, I think, the longest government shutdown ever. And so I think
Yes,
the
sir.
so I guess the question is, and again, the question is on the minds and of some of the ag producers I've spoken with, is are there concerns about ongoing funding for NRCS for the Pacific Islands? Should they worry about putting in applications? I mean, I've heard some folks say that they won't put in an application because they're afraid there's going to be no funding. It's been that extreme in some folks, but tell us what funding looks like from your perspective with all these changes that have happened in less than 12 months.
My thoughts on that is, and I'm very candid and frank when I have discussions with people, because I don't try to cut corners, or I want to be as straightforward as I can. And right now, for us in PIA, just based on the success that we've had the last 2.5 years, not necessarily because of me, but because of the Inflation Reduction Act funding, we have been very successful. Now, with that being said, to get down to the question, our funding, did it decrease for fiscal year 26? Yes, it did, but that's as a result of eliminating IRA, as we call it, Inflation Reduction Act, right? And so, but I think we're right on par with where we've been, or where we have been historically. And I do think that moving forward into FY 26, we'll be okay. And so those folks who are concerned about where is the funding, I would encourage them, and along with you and others, as it relates to our partners, to keep those folks encouraged to apply for our programs. We have an open year-round application. Our deadline is January 15th. We'll figure out when headquarters provides our marching orders as far as when we begin to rank. But based on the passage of the bill to fund the government to January 30th, we as a USDA as a whole have been funded for all of FY 26. So that's a plus. And we're very fortunate. And I think like I've tried to explain in a roundabout way to some of our employees who haven't had the opportunity to be engaged and involved at this level. When you've been around for a long time and you see the different dynamics of how things fluctuate through the years, agriculture is important to the United States of America. I don't care how you cut it, how you slice it, right? And so when that begins to have an impact on certain folks who produce for us and see the trickle down effect of the impact that it has, that's going to get folks' attention. So we're very fortunate to have that. And so we'll see, how things play out. But right now we're funded through September 30th, 2026.
Okay,
So we're in
great.
pretty good shape. Now, with not having the amount of funding that we've had in the past, and I don't know, based on this change of administration, even with our new leadership, in the past, we've had an opportunity to do funds assessment to garner to see if we needed additional funds in a given time frame as it relates to a specific program that we have more requests for. So we're hoping that, based on what we've been granted thus far, if we run out of that, we may have an opportunity to request for more additional funds. So we'll see how that goes around late spring, early midsummer. So we may have an opportunity to continue to do some of the things we've done in the last couple of years.
Do you call it a grant or you don't call it a grant? You call it matching?
No, we don't call it a grant. We related to financial incentive for cost share program dollars, things like that.
Okay.
So we try to stay away from grant. Because
Yeah,
typically the reason for that is usually grants, you don't have no financial obligation. With ours, you do.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, important distinction. So you have a pool of funds that are allocated for each year, September to September, correct?
Correct.
And so is it a set amount of funds that if you don't spend it, it goes back into a general fund, or is it available
Correct.
to roll over to the next year?
No, the only funds, yes and no. It goes back to the general funds related to our cost share program. The only program that we have an opportunity to roll over at times would be our emergency watershed protection funds.
So you have a lot of programs and funding available through the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill did that just renew recently? Is this the latest Farm Bill? And how long does that Farm Bill continue?
They're drafting the next one as we speak. So the funding that we're using now is a closeout of the last Farm Bill that we were authorized.
Do you want people just to continue to apply regardless of the timing, or how are you feeling about that as an agency?
I'm pleased to say nationally, farmers are first, and there will be funding. So we are encouraging potential customers to come in to the local office. Again, Environmental Quality Incentives Program is accepting applications year round. So even if I don't know the total amount of funds available for EQIP, I know that the funds will be there.
A lot of folks we talk to as part of the SOAP project are hesitant in applying for funds in general because they're worried about the burden of paperwork, right? But it sounds like you folks are there to help.
There is a lot of paperwork, but if you think about the opportunity for a direct deposit, it does make sense. They have to have their checks and balances for eligibility, meeting criterias. Once the conservation practice is installed, they have to make sure it meets standards and specs. But the initial paperwork pays off in the end.
Excellent. Well, and I've heard the folks are great to work with and offer
you.
all sorts of helpful advice in general. So even if you don't get funding, is it possible to reach out to NRCS to get suggestions or consulting?
Absolutely. The conservation technical assistance is always an opportunity. So reaching out to our specialists in the field, they may have workload priority shifting because of the staffing some offices are having to do more with less people. So we appreciate the patience as well.
My goal when I got here and we got this RA funding, my goal was to get our staff up to around 115 people. Before all this happened, we topped out at 108. We're sitting right now as a result of retirement, fork in the road, BRP2. We're sitting at 78.
Mm.
And that's not covering everything that we need to cover because, currently we have 78 people.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can see that increase to the levels that you think are appropriate for what you're trying to
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. In due time,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
This past year must have been especially tough. So
it's all about cycles, Mr. Crum. It's all about cycles. We've been through this before. This is a little bit, this time around, it's just a little bit more extended, a little bit more severity, but that's the way the wheel turns in government, right? And so there's brighter days to come. And a lot of people always state that, JB, you always have a tendency to be so optimistic. I have no other choice but to be. I can't falter, and if I falter, the staff falters. So, I'm trying to keep everybody upbeat, motivated, as I like to say, and do the good work that we do. We do good work.
We thank JB and Jolene from NRCS and Ag Producers Keith and Yuki for sharing details with us about NRCS. While 2025 has been a year full of cutbacks and uncertainty, and the new Farm Bill is further delayed, NRCS is optimistic about future funding, so reach out to your nearest office soon and see what they can do to help.
Anything you want to share with the Hawaii Ag community about NRCS as kind of a final thought?
I truly believe that for any serious farmer, rancher, they are a huge resource. They are very willing. From our experience, we've found that they're so willing to work with you and provide what you need to be part of the food producing network here. I think the staff there have been wonderful to work with. They have knowledge. They've got really great recommendations. It's been, for us, it's been a real joy to work with them. So for anyone who is ready, I would highly recommend contacting the office. Even if you're not ready, but you have a plan, you can always call them in as resource personnel.
My staff understands this. If there's something that our producers, would like to, voice their opinions or concerns, and with some, a lot of them have, but for those who are uncertain, always feel free to request my presence. I don't have a problem meeting with folks. I don't have a problem with getting chastised. I can handle that. But my goal is all about the people. One of my mottos, I have several, but my main motto is it's all about serving the people of PIA. Whether that's in the territories, the Commonwealth, Hawaii, even our 2 international offices, it's all about serving the people. Now, are we going to be perfectionists at that? No, because nobody is. However, we need to understand the situations that folks are dealing with, because I've seen many different iterations over the 7 places that I've been, because it's done differently all across the country. But we want to make sure within PIA that we do the best job we can to serve our producers. So whether that means people are on the fence about applying, always feel free to apply. If you don't get approved, go back to the office to see how you can increase your opportunity to get your application through, how we can enhance that, whatever the case may be. That's what we're about. That's what we want to be. It's not going to be gravy. Nothing is gravy. But we want to make sure that we understand. And that's why I challenge my staff. We do a lot of traveling. I think I'm probably one of the first directors that allow staff to travel as much as we do, because one of the main components of mine is we're not going to sit here in Honolulu and try to manage the agricultural operations from Honolulu, because a lot of the ag is other places, including Oahu. But we just want to make sure we're connected, and it's key. And I learned that a long time ago, especially working in the Midwest, with farmers in the Midwest. But you have to stay in tune, and we want to do a better job of that. But our coverage area is a little bit different than most. And so we just have to matriculate through the weeds and make that happen.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate what
Thank
you've
you,
been
sir.
doing.
Appreciate you. We're
Feel,
trying our best.
Big mahalo. Big mahalo. It takes such heart and dedication to farm and to produce food and fiber for our community. Without our farmers and ranchers, we would be struggling. So thank you, big thank you to all of your listeners for what they're doing.
I wish you luck. This is a beautiful spot that you have. I actually know you well enough to have seen this when it was all just guinea grass and Vivi. So
Yeah.
I know I've seen your progress of the work over the years you've been here. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And wish you luck. Take care.
Aloha.
The intention of these podcast series is to create a safe space for respectful and inclusive dialogue with people from across a broad and diverse spectrum involved in growing and making accessible the food we share together. A diversity of voices, perspectives, and experiences can serve to deepen mutual understanding, to spark creative problem solving, and provide insight into the complexities of our agricultural system. If you or listeners have experiences with Hawaii agriculture ecosystem, from indigenous methods, permaculture, smallholder farmers, to large, including multinational agricultural industrial companies, and everywhere in between, and you would like to share your story, please contact us. We welcome your voices and perspectives.
Any sports fans that might see this, especially football, I get up early in the morning. My wife is here with me now. She's a sports fan. We get up and watch College Game Day on ESPN, and we have to get up 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and go through that iteration. But yeah, we're diehard sports fans. But the bright side about that, I can enjoy my football, and I still got a majority of the day left to do whatever I need to do. So that's the one saving grace for it. So it's been good.